The latest census reported that 40% of the U.S. population is racial and ethnic minorities, yet that group is only represented in 2% of clinical trials.
Yeah, huge divide. That disparity can lead to drug developments that don't actually work for all people. I found a local startup that is intent on making a dent in that disparity. Acclinate is the name of the company. It's one of the hottest startups, not only in Alabama, but in the entire nation. It's a Birmingham-based company that seeks to marry cutting-edge technology with vibrant community engagement in hopes of breaking through skepticism to help minority communities get healthier.
Tiffany Whitlow and Dale Smith co-founded Acclinate 5 years ago. Solely focused on getting more minorities to take part in clinical trials, the company has taken off. Now over 50 employees with a footprint that includes Birmingham, Huntsville, and Washington, D.C. For Whitlow, it all started with a personal medical mishap.
My son was diagnosed with asthma. He was given an albuterol inhaler, and I had no idea at the time that albuterol is 47% less effective in African Americans and 67% less effective in Puerto Ricans. And it's very personal. I mean, when it starts with your own personal story, I feel like you can never really get rid of that.
In the past 5 years, Acclinate has heard similar stories around the nation. The challenge, they say, is a major disconnect between the medical community and minority communities that drastically limits minority participation in clinical trials.
So we're going to continue to have drugs that are less effective for minority groups because we're not included in that research.
The skepticism is driven by a not-so-distant past. The 40-year untreated syphilis study at Tuskegee that only ended in 1972. The harvesting and study of Henrietta Lack's cervical cells in 1951 that took place without her knowledge or consent. Scandals that continue to reverberate in minority communities.
We met with a mayor in Tuskegee, and we understand that the Tuskegee, the syphilis study is still talked about. People talk about Henrietta Lacks, and I mean, you can't just shy over that. People want to know that you're aware that that happened.
Longtime Birmingham resident Jonice Thompson is retired from Birmingham's medical community, but never retired from giving back to her hometown. That's what led her to get involved in recruiting people to take part in clinical trials with Acclinate, something she thought she left behind when she retired.
So I said, I really don't want to do this. It's like a ghost that come back to hunt. But because of Tiffany and Dale's enthusiasm, and they had it here.
Romario Gardner is tasked with traveling the nation and pitching the Acclinate promise to minority communities. Gardner says he doesn't see his job so much as a salesman, but rather more of an educator.
The win is to just give them the opportunity to learn. It's the opportunity to know more about if this trial can help me, if I'm living with hidradenitis suppurativa, right, and I now know there's a trial, that's a win for me.
With now more than 120,000 people a part of its clinical trials, Acclinate's impact is growing daily, making a real difference in the lives of families across the nation.
You dream as a little girl of like getting to make a difference in the world, but when you know that you provided somebody with something that they didn't have before interacting with you, I believe it's the most fulfilling part of the journey.
She is so impressive now. As you can tell, Whitlow and that Acclinate team, they're very mission focused, and a lot of folks attribute that to their level of success.
It's fascinating. You talked about the disparity in minority representation in clinical trials. How much ground have they made up in that disparity?
They actually have been doing pretty good on this. Whitlow tells me that while they stand at around 130,000 participants signed up as of now, the goal is 500,000, and the goal and their expectation is to do that here within the next few months. So a lot of work left to do.
A lot of trust building.
Yeah,
that's happening.
And they're working hard at it.
Good stuff.